Chapter 296. Luonan's elevator stopped at the 133rd floor. Everyone else went down, leaving only Luonan and Tianxi. The number of floors rapidly jumped up. It looked like the elevator was going to be silent all the way until he suddenly spoke. What kind of person is Professor Pan? Half of Tianxi's mind was still hooked by the berserk devil ray, and some of it was on Zhu Maoshuan's side. She was stupefied for a few seconds upon hearing Luonan's words. Only when the elevator stopped and the metal door opened did she wake up from her reverie. She was about to speak, but Luonan had already stepped out of the door. She could only hurry to keep up. She was completely brought along by his rhythm, like a secretary accepting an inquiry from her boss. Tianxi suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and responded, "Professor Pan Wen is a first-rate design theorist in the world. At least half of the reputation of our design institute is supported by her." Tianxi knew very well what Luonan was truly concerned about. She paused for a moment before continuing. Senior sister Qingwen was personally taught by Professor Pan when she was at the Design Institute. I asked a few of my senior brothers and sisters who stayed at the school. They all said that Professor Pan loved senior sister Qingwen like a daughter back in the day. She's a very amiable old lady, even if she doesn't care about academics. She will certainly be very happy if you pay a visit. Luonan said solemnly, "I will certainly pay a visit." "That's fine. I can help you introduce her." Luonan didn't care how many thoughts were contained within Tianxi's words. He seriously memorized Professor Pan Wen's contact information. The two passed through the walkway and entered the open-air viewing platform. They were already 700 meters in height. The buildings in the Pingjiang district were generally short. Aside from the main building of Cloud City, there was a vast expanse as far as the eye could see. Tianxi said that they could see the wetlands and jungles of the school from here. Dusk had arrived and the weather had turned cold. Strong winds howled from high up in the sky, causing the protective glass at the edge of the platform to buzz. There was also the sound of water beneath the sound of the wind. The peak of the central crystal pillar is the 142nd floor. Tianxi pointed at the raised frame structure in the center of the platform. The frame was both a support and a separation. A vast body of water with a diameter of nearly 50 meters was cut out. This body of water rose to a height of approximately 2 meters, and it was surrounded by protective glass. This is the rather famous Heavenly Ocean Lake. It looks like a part of the crystal pillar, but the two are actually separate. The bottom of the lake is separated by reinforced glass. So it's just a swimming pool. It's just a gimmick that the operator modified. The two needed to pass by the edge of the frame structure of the Heavenly Ocean Lake. Luonan only shot a glance at this gimmick. He wasn't interested. The current time was just before most of the salaried workers got off work. The sky was getting dark and there weren't many people on the viewing platform, making it seem a little deserted. Luonan identified his direction a bit and walked to the edge of the viewing platform. He cast his gaze in the direction of the academy. He did see the wetland forest of the academy, and the outline was still clear. There was also the long river that passed through the forest, winding in and out, reflecting the light of the setting sun, appearing and disappearing at times. Luonan was able to determine the specific location of gear by relying on the silhouette of the forest and the river. But now the sky was gradually darkening. Separated by a distance of more than 10 kilometers, that single building was really like a small component, lost in the shadows of the boundless jungle, difficult to find. Luonan still wanted to give it a try. He believed that Tianxi wouldn't lie about this matter. He wanted to use his spiritual sense, but in this situation, his spiritual clairvoyance, which had always been successful, didn't seem to be as far as his vision. "It's too late. My field of view is limited. But there are viewing mirrors here. I should be able to see." Tianxi pointed to a row of high-powered viewing binoculars at the edge. These were specially prepared for tourists, and there were only 2 or 3 people using them right now. Luonan didn't say a word. He walked forward, moved his head to take a look, and then stood up straight. Tianxi carefully observed, "Is it not okay?" Luonan shook his head. The oppressive world he saw through the limited field of view through the binoculars was absolutely not the feeling he needed. He stood stupidly at the edge of the viewing platform for 7 or 8 seconds. Then he suddenly spoke without any warning, "Coupling design. What in the world is this?" He had a general understanding of the definition of coupling. It referred to the interaction and linkage phenomenon between various systems. But what did it specifically refer to in his mother's architectural theory? Tianxi had to answer this question. She grew all the more cautious and cautious. She thought over and over before saying, The Design Institute has a relatively unified view. It is a new interpretation of the classical Eastern philosophy of man and nature are one. And the practical train of thought is in the same vein as green buildings that borrow solar energy, water energy, wind energy, and other natural energy sources. Luonan furrowed his brows. Tianxi immediately increased her tone, but from what I can see, Senior Sister Qingwen's core idea should be that she hopes to use the orderly architectural layout created by humans to carry out an effective influence on the grand natural system. And the level involved in this influence method is incomparable to green buildings in the traditional sense. Professor Pan has an evaluation of this called the Eye of Heaven and Earth. It's a mystery within a mystery. Tianxi spoke very vaguely. She was far from researching coupling design theory thoroughly. She just picked out a nice evaluation from her predecessors to appease Luonan. Luonan was well aware of this. He pursed his lips and didn't respond. He had a rough idea but he wasn't sure. He didn't want to say it to Tianxi. It was this feeling that seemed clear but wasn't clear that stimulated Luonan's heart. It made him impatient to tear down the bewildering barrier. No matter what the answer was, it possessed incomparable value from his perspective. He took another step forward. The tip of his nose pressed against the protective glass wall of the viewing platform. He strove to look into the distance. Unfortunately, this step was meaningless when compared to the distance of a dozen kilometers. What he saw before his eyes was still only a rough outline. There was still no trace of the element belonging to gear. His field of vision had already expanded to its limits, but the precision of his resolution was still a bit lacking. As for the mental plane, he was barely able to probe forward in the void. He was still far from it. In this way his gaze could see, his mental senses could be sensed. 2 domains, 2 planes. He was unable to find a precise target. He was tangled up quite fiercely and his mind was in chaos. Luonan knocked his forehead against the glass. He wanted to calm his emotions. Then his wristband received a call at this time. It continued to vibrate. He wanted to turn it off but he glanced at it before he could do so. The name that entered his eyes stunned him. Zhang Yingying. Luonan had nearly forgotten that he still had the number of a fellow member of the society in his hands. It had been a long time since he last contacted this person. It was said that Zhang Yingying had gone into seclusion. She had hopes of advancing her white rainbow to the next level. It must be said that Luonan really wasn't in the mood to deal with Zhang Yingying right now. However, Zhang Yingying had specifically changed channels to contact him during the maintenance of the psychic wave network. He feared that something had happened. In the end he still connected. He was just about to open his mouth to greet her when the other side gave him a barrage of words. Where are you? Are you at school? Luonan was stupefied for a moment before he responded. Something the matter? I'm not at school. I'm at Cloud City Water Village. You're not there? Excellent. Wait a minute. Cloud City Water Village isn't that far away. Zhang Yingying's voice rose in pitch. She immediately asked, what about Shuelei? Is Shuelei with you? Though the distance was a bit far it still counted. Luonan gave a vague response. Zhang Yingying clearly let out a sigh of relief. What kind of mode did you set up? The secretary asked me for your number but she couldn't get through. In the end she even asked me to tell her. When will you let people be a bit less worried? Luonan sweated a bit. He had listened to He Yuan's advice to concentrate on cultivation and had modified the settings of the hexa. He had also conveniently set the wristband's communication to restricted mode. He only allowed contacts who had already been recorded to enter. He never thought that a problem would crop up. Zhang Yingying grumbled a few words and her tone deliberately turned serious. Listen carefully. I'm just passing on the secretary's words. What's wrong? Trouble's coming. I don't know what the investigation team from headquarters heard, or maybe someone misled them. Right now, they are completely convinced that you are a key figure in the Frost River reality incident and that you know a few secrets. They want to dig out information from you and summon you for interrogation. Interrogation? They want to interrogate me? Luonan's mood was originally very anxious. He couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. What kind of play was this? It's the usual style of headquarters bureaucrats. There's nothing strange about it. Zhang Yingying's words were filled with disdain. She immediately snorted and said, of course President Ouyang refuted this unreasonable request. But this group of people won't give up. They used the high-level privileges in their hands to create a malfunction, forcing the psychic wave network to disconnect for maintenance. President Ouyang just let them mess around? Shut up and listen to me. Time difference. Do you understand time difference? You're a rookie who hasn't even passed basic training. You probably won't even know what's going on when you encounter those guys who are proficient in torture and interrogation. Then you'll pour out everything in your belly. Luonan asked curiously, hold on. You're saying that they've already come to find me? At school? Nonsense. Otherwise, why would we have called you in such a hurry? Right now headquarters has already sent people out. There might be reinforcements here in Xia City as well. For this group of people, as long as they don't take your little life, then even if their methods are too extreme and produce some minor repercussions, President Ouyang and our boss won't be able to kill them. Naturally, they'll be unscrupulous. Zhang Yingying spoke faster and faster. On the contrary, as long as you're under the protection of the branch, they won't dare to act forcefully in order to avoid things getting out of hand. Right now the psychic wave network is disconnected, and the branch is in a complete mess. We don't know who can rush over to help you first. Luckily Shuelei is here. That fellow's abilities are worth trusting. How about this? Find a place with a lot of people and stay with Shuelei. Don't move. It doesn't matter who is looking for you. As long as the secretary doesn't personally confirm it, you absolutely won't go with them. If they really want to play forcefully, then let Shuelei deal a killing blow. You'll be fine after holding on for half an hour at most. What about Shuelei? Let him respond. I'll make some arrangements. He's on the phone over there. Luonan. Chapter 297. From Luonan's impression, this was the first time Zhang Yingying's anger had reached its peak. He was used to her laughing and joking, completely improper appearance. Her sudden outburst was quite impactful. Luonan did not blame Zhang Yingying for her mood. He had received training from the society. Whenever he chatted with Bamboo Pole, Papercut, and the others, he would never hear anything good about headquarters. Luonan was very curious about this. How could such an organization retain people? Papercut's answer was resources, strength, and fewer restrictions. But he also admitted that all these benefits were as fragile as bubbles when serious conflicts of interest were involved. Bamboo Pole's answer was much more artistic. Not all cities are like Xia City. The environment of Xia City was indeed very good, but it was not a paradise that transcended the world. It was hard to avoid being affected. Recently, the investigation team of headquarters was the kind of trash that wasn't welcomed by chickens and dogs in Xia City. What was truly strange was that the Xia City branch handled things coldly and secretly guarded against them. How did they get the chance to come out and disgust people? Luonan was not prepared to bicker with Zhang Yingying. His thoughts spun as he unleashed his own special response. He did not give Shuelei another call. Instead, he directly unleashed his mental senses. He was on the viewing platform and the location of the party was on the 88th floor. There was a drop of over 50 floors. The straight-line distance between the two was no more than 200 or 300 meters. It was all within the range of his mental senses. Luonan easily found Shuelei on the floor where the party was located. He gave him a subtle mental jolt, and Shuelei's martial habits immediately alerted him. Next was communication on the mental plane. Since the communication was one way, and Shuelei was not used to this method, Luonan did not go into too many details. But Shuelei was very clear about the seriousness of the situation. He immediately informed Xiao Xinyu and hung up after a few words. He rushed upstairs. Zhang Yingying slapped her thigh when Luonan did not immediately respond. Did you understand what I said or not? I've already notified Shuelei. He's coming upstairs right now. You can call him. Zhang Yingying was stupefied. She instantly collected her meaningless emotions and asked, how many floors off? Forget it. I'll ask him. Also, your mental senses have been opened, right? It's 80 meters in diameter. That should be enough. Remember, this is a matter of life and death. No matter what, you have to hold on and keep searching for suspicious targets. Don't hang up the phone. I turned on my communicator. Luonan grunted. He listened to the quick conversation between Zhang Yingying and Shuelei. His mental senses silently covered a wide range of a kilometer. The magnificent scene of the Milky Way unfolded in his mind. Starting from the underground space of Ocean Sky Cloud City, there were nearly 170 floors. The life sketches of tens of thousands of creatures lit up layer by layer. Stars filled the sky, dense and numerous. Actually, Luonan could ignore the vast majority of these areas. He just needed to search for the areas that his mental senses were unable to penetrate. The speed at which the answer appeared exceeded his expectations. It was the high-speed elevator that he had taken before. The elevator next to it was shrouded in a gloomy, dark fog, and a few stars were faintly discernible. At this time, the suspicious elevator had already reached the 130th floor, which was the office area of a multinational corporation. Someone had pressed the button to open the elevator. It had paused for a while, but it would soon resume its upward state. Luonan let out a breath. Not too good. Zhang Yingying immediately replied, "What happened?" "There are indeed people coming up, but their strength is unknown. Avoid them. Utilize the advantage of your senses. Don't come face to face with them. If they have sensing abilities and you really can't avoid them, then enter the crowd. Don't give those fellows the chance to make a move." Luonan looked around the viewing platform, his lips silently grinning. Right now there were very few figures on the platform. The so-called crowd certainly didn't exist. Even if it did, he wasn't willing to use innocent people as shields. Finally, he cast his gaze towards the increasingly dusky sky. It would be hard for him to unearth a new secretive gear today no matter what. Speaking of which, he seemed to lack a kind of intuition, inherited from his bloodline. This son of his was unqualified. Wasn't that right? This unreasonable thought caused the emotions in his heart to tumble a few more times. He smacked the protective glass heavily, and this action startled Tianxi. "Junior?" Luonan didn't have the mood to give her an explanation right now. He simply said, "Let's go." Tianxi was stunned. Luonan's current behavior and attitude were extremely odd, but she was smart and didn't plan on saying much. She just gave a soft grunt of agreement, taking on a submissive attitude that said, "I'll let you decide." Zhang Yingying was quite baffled as well. "You're still leading someone? Who is it?" Luonan didn't respond. He led Tianxi toward the elevator area with large strides. Given the speed of the elevator, he could still avoid the unidentified fellow. But halfway there, a new element appeared within the range of his mental senses. Luonan's footsteps suddenly stopped. His mental senses were focused on the crystal pillar. This enormous pillar had a diameter of 120 meters. Tens of thousands of marine life were placed within it, but 99% of them were muddle-headed. Their life sketches were also scattered. He could just ignore them. There was only a single devil ray. Because it was a mutant, it had a powerful aura, and it didn't know how to conceal itself. Most of its life sketches were exposed outside the nebula. It was extremely eye-catching and outshone others. And because of this, Luonan suddenly discovered that this big fellow had left the mid-deep water region that it liked to stay in. It went all the way up, its speed much faster than a high-speed elevator. In the beginning, the location of the devil ray was around 30 floors lower than the elevator that hid the suspicious person. But as Luonan used his mental clairvoyance, the devil ray's height skyrocketed. It broke through the 130th floor barrier in the blink of an eye, and its speed didn't decrease in the slightest. What made Luonan even more vigilant was that there was a much more obscure dark mist next to this big fellow. It was hidden extremely well. If it weren't for the fact that Luonan was affected by the bright life sketches of the devil ray on the mental plane, Luonan would have overlooked it. This wasn't some marine product. It was a living person. There was nothing to worry about. Luonan immediately changed directions and asked urgently, "Are there any elevators that don't go through Heavenly Ocean Lake?" There were 60 high-speed elevators on the upper floors of Ocean Sky Cloud City. The structure was complex, and Luonan's nebula image wasn't particularly good at dealing with inanimate objects. He could only treat a dead horse as a living horse and ask, "There are." Tianxi's response was admirable. She had done her homework earlier. She immediately pointed to the west side of the viewing platform. "There's a row over there. Walk faster. We'll split up when we get there." Tianxi was practically jogging under Luonan's urging. She was a bit out of breath. "Is Zhu Maoxuan and the others coming up?" "I'm sorry. It's none of your business." Luonan made Tianxi shut her mouth. "You're still acting all high and mighty. If you're in the mood, why don't you take a few more steps?" Zhang Yingying urged Luonan from the other side of the communicator. She was mocking Luonan, but she was actually stomping her feet in anger. "If you don't have the ability, then don't pretend. Shuele, hurry up." Shuele's urgent voice rang out. "I'll go from the outside." Luonan corrected his position and updated the information. "Go to the west side of the building. I'll report the floor at any time. One of them is in the Central District elevator. The other one is in the Crystal Pillar." Luonan took out a thumb-sized metal bottle from his pocket as he spoke. He unscrewed the cap with one hand, shook it, and then simply tossed it away. The bottle landed on the ground. It sounded like it was empty. Tianxi couldn't understand what Luonan was doing, but her entire body was stung with cold sweat from his words, which were filled with the smell of danger. In the end, she was a smart person. She cherished her life. She didn't say anything, but she secretly turned on the communication function of her wristband. She hesitated for half a second between calling the police and notifying that person, before choosing the latter. However, there was no response from the communication device. Tianxi's mind went blank for a moment. She didn't look where she was going during this moment of absent-mindedness, and her high heels slipped down the stairs. She immediately stumbled, but Luonan supported her. Luonan extended a helping hand, but his feet didn't stop at all. He half-dragged Tianxi forward. Under such circumstances, even though he didn't say a word, the pressing sense of crisis was like a thundercloud wrapped in lightning. It pressed down heavily, frightening one's soul. Tianxi's face was pale. She didn't say a word. She walked 7 or 8 steps in a daze before breaking away from Luonan's support. Her hand clutched the painting clip tightly, and her knuckles turned pale. The two walked into the elevator area on the west side. Coincidentally, an elevator arrived before Luonan even pressed the button. The bell rang and the metal door opened. Tianxi's mind was numb right now. She followed her instincts to move forward, but she was suddenly pulled by Luonan. She immediately lost her balance and her petite figure fell backward. She bumped into Luonan's shoulder and she was pushed back. She let out a low cry, and the painting clip in her hand slid to the ground. The two people retreated at the same time, stepped on it one after the other. Not only was it dirty, it even cracked from being stepped on. But Tianxi couldn't care about these details right now. A figure slowly walked out from behind the opened elevator door. He wore a security uniform and he held a police baton in his hand. The electric current switch was already turned on and it sizzled. This new type of police baton had the effect of an electric whip. Sparks could be seen flickering. The leaping arcs of electricity possessed an absolute deterrent force from Tianxi's perspective. Since he was a security personnel, why didn't he call for help? It was because this person's face was a strange appearance that made one's blood run cold. Dilated pupils, stiff flesh, and flowing snot and tears. Everything presented was filled with fear. The corner of his mouth split open, twitching upwards. Just looking at this part of his face made it seem like he was grinning in laughter. His face was forcefully inserted with completely opposite emotions. From Tianxi's perspective, this scene was even more terrifying than the scene of the devil ray charging into the crystal pillar. At the very least, that electric baton was real. He's crazy, Tianxi moaned. The crazy security guard's throat emitted a strange ho-ho sound just as Tianxi's voice fell. He exerted force with his feet, brandishing the electric baton as he charged over. Tianxi let out a short cry of alarm, and her body shrunk behind Luonan. Just as she hid in the shadows behind Luonan's back, the muffled sound of a heavy object smashing into something rang out. There was also the sound of something rolling. Luonan's figure stood steadily without moving, and he continued to cover the space in front of him. Tianxi breathed in with great effort to restore her calm. She vaguely heard Luonan say something in a low voice. Chapter 298. Tianxi didn't understand what Luonan said at all. She just saw the crazy security guard fall face first to the ground. The baton slipped from his hand and slid all the way to their feet. She instinctively wanted to pick it up and use it to defend herself, but Luonan kicked the baton away the moment she bent down. Don't delay. Take this elevator and leave first. Luonan urged Tianxi to move faster. Tianxi hesitated for a moment before walking out from behind Luonan. She walked toward the elevator when another ding rang out. A second elevator had arrived. Its location was right next to the previous elevator. Tianxi took a step forward and was half a step ahead of Luonan. She raised her head and saw the same scene from before. Two security guards with the same expression came out of the elevator. One of them was even carrying a riot gun. Tianxi's vermilion lips parted when she saw the pitch-black muzzle of the gun, but her throat was choked with fear. She was unable to make a sound. She no longer had the chance to hide this time. But it was also because of this that her pupils dilated from fear clearly reflected the entire process of the two crazy security guards' eyes rolling white as they silently fell to the ground. There were no sound or light effects during the entire process. It was like a pantomime. The people on the viewing platform outside didn't notice anything. But the more it was like this, the more bizarre and mysterious elements seeped into the bottom of her heart. Tianxi subconsciously covered her mouth. Her ice-cold palms felt a bit of warmth from the breath, allowing her to confirm that she was still in the real world. But why? Why did she get involved in a conflict of this level? Luonan didn't have the leisure to ponder over a girl's mind. He saw that Tianxi couldn't move her legs, so he gave her a light push. Hurry up. Tianxi bit her lips and took 2 steps forward. However, at this moment, the faint sound of motors suddenly stopped, and the display screens of the entire row of elevators on this side had all turned off. The power was cut off, and the metal doors automatically closed, isolating Xianxia outside. Whether it was Xianxia or Luonan, they were both stunned for a moment. Half a second later, Luonan grinned. It was hard to tell if he was smiling or not. The other side doesn't fight a battle unprepared. A muffled vibration came over just as Luonan finished speaking. The two trembled slightly beneath their feet. An earthquake. Xianxi's first thought was an earthquake that had persisted for over a month. But the second wave of vibration came right after. There was also the sound of crashing water. It clearly came from the direction of Heavenly Ocean Lake. The few tourists on the viewing platform were all extremely shocked. Some stuck their heads in the direction of the swimming pool, while others directly walked over. Xianxia looked over as well, but Luonan pulled her away. Go to the fire escape passageway. Luonan no longer paid attention to the defunct elevator. He quickly confirmed the location and walked a few steps quickly. He rushed ahead of the confused Xianxia, wanting her to keep up. In a trance, Xianxia took a few steps forward and stepped over the body of the crazy security guard. This time she didn't trip. Instead, she was more stimulated. When things reach an extreme, they move in the opposite direction. Her mind became much clearer. Remembering something, she stopped and bent down to pick up the anti-riot gun on the ground. Tian said. A foot swept over and brushed past Xianxi's fingertips, sending the anti-riot gun flying several meters away. Xianxi's heart instantly spasmed. All her complex and chaotic emotions were squeezed to the point of exploding in this moment. She suddenly stood up straight and she did not know where the courage came from. She rushed at Luonan and shouted. She unconsciously lowered her voice, "You have to use a weapon to defend yourself." "Guard down," said Tian. Nan. Tian, for what reason? I just took a course. Non-combatants can't possess weapons of mass destruction in similar situations. Otherwise, I might be the first to suffer. Xianxia knew that she couldn't get angry, but she couldn't stand having her dignity trampled on. She raised her voice. I've gone through military training. I won't hurt you by accident. Or are you worried that I'll shoot you in the back? Yes, they will when the other party has some sort of controlling ability. Luonan raised his wrist slightly after speaking. He asked through his communication wristband, it can control ordinary people. The controlled person's movements are unhindered, and their emotions are strange. What sort of ability is this? Zhang Yingying responded in the first instance. She pointed directly at the owner of this ability. It's Puppeteer. He's a member of the investigation team. He's proficient in high-level hypnosis. His ability is to control life forms with complex emotions. Aside from humans, he can also control wild beasts or mutants with high intelligence, as long as he doesn't suffer a backlash. We can now determine who's in the crystal pillar. Zhang Yingying snorted coldly. Stay away from that stupid woman if you want to live. You should have parted ways from the beginning. Luonan indicated for Xianxia to keep up. He laughed. The other party has made ample preparations. I might not be able to deal with the hostage situation. I might as well keep her by my side and be at ease. You're going to ignore her? Who knows? Why take the risk and try? Zhang Yingying choked. She said resentfully, I'm just afraid that you won't be able to protect her. You'll be threatened all the same. Then it's a matter of ability. Luonan used his mental senses to lock onto the two threatening targets while he cautiously observed the situation all around him. At the same time, he spoke with Zhang Yingying and split some of his energy to keep an eye on Xianxia. Multiple operations and multiple people taking care of each other. This was a bitter task for anyone. However, Luonan dealt with it in an orderly and logical manner. He wasn't messed up at all. In fact, Luonan's mind had become much clearer after these 10 days of training. Yuan, bamboo pole, paper cut, and the others had imperceptibly clarified many common-sense standards for him. When he encountered a situation and needed to make a judgment, he already had a set of rules about what elements he needed to consider and what he could overlook. Also, the cultivation of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice had allowed his reaction and coordination abilities to advance by leaps and bounds, even though he had yet to reach in-progress results. No matter what situation he faced, he would always be much calmer than before. He even split some of his mental energy. Leister, be a bit steady. Don't charge too fiercely. No problem. I'm around the 110th floor. I'll be there soon. Shuelei's breathing was steady, but his mood was clearly a bit tense. Luonan comforted him. It's okay. I've already taken down 3 of them. Puppeteer's move is useless against me. He arrived in front of the fire escape passageway as he spoke. He was just about to push the door open when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered, and he immediately retracted his arm. He was just a hair away from stabbing his finger with the dark green beetle's pincers on the door handle. The sharp edge of the pincers was serrated, and there was a layer of green and lustrous light. The result of stabbing him would probably not be good. The attack missed, and the beetle, which was the size of a fist, buzzed. It spread its wings and flew into the air, smashing down to cover Luonan's face. Xianxia cried out in alarm. Luonan's other hand grabbed the loose-leaf notebook, and he swung it like a fly swatter. The dark green beetle leaped up to avoid Luonan's attack, and then it pounced down. It displayed inconceivable agility. Luonan saw that the force of his attack was exhausted, and he was no longer able to block it. A thin piece of paper floated out from between the pages of the notebook in Luonan's hand. It lay horizontally in the path of the beetle's attack. It transformed out of thin air, contracting like a spring, and then it burst open to reveal a small and exquisite figure. It flew high into the air and kicked the beetle far away. The small and exquisite figure landed on Luonan's shoulder. It was actually a small paper man the size of a palm. It had all 4 limbs and its face was muddle-headed. Its body was only a thin layer, but it just so happened to adopt a fist stance. It was extremely intelligent amidst its strangeness. The chain of changes could be said to be like a falcon descending from a hare. Xianxia's cry of alarm had only just begun. Things were far from over. Not only did the beetle that was sent flying waver a few times, but it pounced over again. 7 or 8 beetles flew out from the crack in the door of the fire escape passageway. It was as if they were carved from the same mold. They buzzed with the sound of flapping wings, and they pounced over in unison. They were a dense mass of darkness, and it made one's scalp go numb. Luonan's figure hastily retreated, and he even pulled Xianxia along with him. The small paper man on his shoulder soared into the air even earlier. It was like a valiant boxing master. It faced the enemy head-on without the slightest fear. It punched and kicked, and each strike was heavy. It sent 3 flying in a row, stopping the momentum of the beetle's attack. But no matter how valiant and tenacious the small paper man was, it was still outnumbered when faced with the beetle swarm. Its figure was not inferior to the beetle swarm, and it didn't possess the ability to fly. It had no choice but to borrow strength from the beetles. It was greatly restricted, and soon it was in dire straits. One of its arms was torn off, and it floated to the ground. Fortunately, the beetle's reactions were not sharp or astute. They were confused by the small paper man's aura, and they all fell to the ground. They gathered in a circle, and because they were small targets, they hindered each other, giving the small paper man time to struggle. Luonan retreated all the way, but his gaze never left the small battlefield. He asked, "Is controlling beetles a skill of puppeteer?" Xianxia didn't answer immediately. "Hello." A sharp beep rang out. It was Xianxia smacking down with her palm. The car horn blared. She was rushing over, but Luonan's words woke her up. She couldn't control herself and said angrily, "It's Black Beetle. That idiot. His heart is even smaller than a beetle's." Black Beetle? Luonan remembered this fellow. It seemed that Black Beetle was one of Xianxia, Bamboo Pole, and the others who played the game together. During the operation to encircle the human-faced arachnid at the Limestone Water Village pub, Black Beetle had swung his hands and left because he was dissatisfied with Yuan's blunt and outspoken style. Later, Black Beetle vented his anger on Luonan because of the matter of the operation score. He directly made a phone call to threaten Luonan. Luonan really didn't know how Xianxia and the others were able to play with such a character. Right now, Black Beetle had already made his move, and he was going against Luonan. His position was very clear. Xianxia went silent for a few seconds after she spoke. Her voice was a bit low. She didn't mention personal matters. She just said, "Don't treat him as a wizard. Pay attention to his close-range attacks. His speed definitely isn't fast, but his transformations are strange. His explosive power is strong, and many of his techniques are dipped in poison." Luonan's gaze cut across the mass of beetles. "That's really bad. Alright. Is he an activation class?" "What?" Xianxia didn't react for a time. "Soul strength activation. It's the type that Papercut excels at. Aren't they divided into the control style and the activation style? I think this move of his is quite similar." Xianxia didn't understand what he meant. She could only say, "It's the activation class. But I'm telling you to be careful of his close-range attacks. That's what counters you the most." "I know." Chapter 299. Luo Nan's response really didn't meet Zhang Yinying's expectations. She slapped the steering wheel again. What the hell are you playing it down for? Haven't you been attending classes all this time? You don't even understand the most basic analysis of victory and defeat. What the hell are you playing for? What in the world did the secretary teach you? I've learned a few things. The most basic principle is to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of the enemy and myself. We should play to our strengths and avoid our weaknesses. We should seize the enemy's weakness and attack them to death. Also, you need to have absolute confidence in your own advantages. You absolutely can't lose momentum. That bastard crag burst must have fed you some kind of bewitching soup. Amazing. Luo Nan expressed his admiration very sincerely, but it angered Zhang Yinying to the point where she fell backwards. She really wanted to grab this kid by the ear and lecture him, but this really wasn't the time to talk nonsense. She could only grit her teeth, endure her temper, and speak layer by layer. Let me tell you. Your advantages are all long-range and most of them are on the mental plane. Right now, Black Beetle and the others know everything about you, and their strength is far above yours. Most of your foresight abilities like mental senses have been crippled. You still have a mental attack technique, right? It looks pretty good, but if the opponent is on guard, it's not hard to specially prepare a layer of countermeasures. They've already reached this step. Why would they be afraid of putting in more effort? Luo Nan listened earnestly to Zhang Yinying's analysis, but he declined to comment. In the end, he just hung his head slightly, closed his eyes and breathed out, adjusting his state. When he opened his eyes again, he gave a simple answer. I'll do my best not to meet them face to face. You? Level 125. Shuelei took the initiative to interrupt. He also reminded the two that it was better to act than talk. If they continued to toss and turn, Black Beetle would really come charging over. Got it? Luo Nan responded. From beginning to end, whether it was Shuelei or the two dangerous targets, they were all within the range of his senses. He had a grasp of their respective rhythms of action. He even estimated the specific data. Puppeteer is still leading the Devil Ray to crash into the wall. Black Beetle just exited the elevator. The straight line distance is 55 meters, and he's advancing at a uniform speed. There's no better route. Move forward. The first part was an instruction to Zhang Yinying, and the last three words were an order to Tianxi, indicating that this senior sister should rush into the fire escape, and he even gave her a push. But insects. Facing more than 10 ugly beetles piled up together, Tianxi's hair stood on end. She was already very strong-willed to keep her legs from weakening. Easier to deal with than humans. Though Luo Nan said this, he still shook his notebook. The pages split apart and another small paper man jumped out. It wandered around the outside of the beetle pile, helping its companion to disperse the pressure and making the fight even more lively. Tianxi was unable to smile at all when she saw this mini and even comical battle scene. Ever since the start of the crazy security guard, Luo Nan had always been a bewitching core that clutched at her heart. Luo Nan would occasionally glance at her, but it made her heart beat faster. Most of this was due to the effects of fear. But she also remembered what Luo Nantong had said during the call. Under such circumstances, this young man, who was 6 or 7 years younger than her, did not need to hide anything. All his worries and considerations were open and frank. Because of this, the flavor of leniency that came after calm contemplation clearly appeared. Luo Nan didn't wish for her to become a hostage. It wasn't that there was any friendship between the two. It was just that it would bring trouble. But how could a truly emotionless person consider this? Tianxi thought of that person. She had already contacted him countless times after the incident, but he didn't pick up. He completely ignored her. Comparing the two, the callous and deep core behind his exquisite brows could be seen even more clearly. Tianxi found it strange that she was still able to think of these things in this critical situation. Perhaps this was the nature of women? Tianxi laughed self-deprecatingly after a few waves of thoughts churned in her mind. A bit of calmness reappeared from her dazed and chaotic state. She no longer hesitated and doubted pointlessly. She held her breath and carefully walked toward the fire escape ahead of her. The two small paper men gathered the beetles into a ball, clearing the path to the fire escape. Luo Nan and Tianxi took a few steps forward. There was a bit of commotion as they passed the beetle swarm. Tianxi instinctively shuddered, but Luo Nan promptly reminded her, "Don't worry about it." Tianxi looked at the wooden door of the fire escape, which was only 2 steps away. She simply closed her eyes and extended her arm forward. She increased the speed of her feet instead of slowing down. Her palm made contact with the door in the span of a breath. The beetles she had been worried about did not turn around to chase after her. There weren't even one or two extra beetles in the dusky stairwell. Behind her, Luonan pushed open the wooden door of the stairwell, but he didn't enter. He just said to Tianxi, "Keep walking down. Don't worry about the elevator." "Aren't we going together?" Tianxi didn't receive a response from Luonan at all. The 15 or 16-year-old youth in front of her had long since turned his face to stare at the situation on the viewing platform. Half of the effects of cultivating the heart lantern of the eye's orifice over the past 10 days came from this. The door closed heavily. Through the glass of the door, Luonan could see the beetles unable to dodge in time. They collided headfirst into the door, and the crackling sounds of impact were quite crisp. Of course, this wasn't enough. These beetles weren't made of steel, so a normal impact wouldn't be able to injure them. Luonan didn't hope that this attack would succeed. He just used the door to block and then he ran down the stairs. His eyes remained half-closed as he ran, and an incorporeal spider web revolved around him in the void. Above his head, on the familiar mental plane, a vicious and ugly shadow responded to his summons. It appeared by his side, occupying the center of the spider web. Its 6 eyes circulated with brilliance as it absorbed information from all directions. It was none other than the executor who had gotten rid of the 3 crazy security guards. The human-faced arachnid. Chapter 300. The human-faced arachnid in Luonan's hands was not an original type. It was a product of faith developed by the Order of Justice. It was a high-quality imitation version that Luonan had personally created. He had created and used it back at Frost River Reality. It was quite easy to order it around. Unfortunately, it was later destroyed by Xuanhuan. Luonan had already forgotten about this matter with the passage of time. He never expected that Fairchild would send someone to deliver a small bottle of raw materials for some unknown reason before he went back to report. It was the metal bottle that Luonan had just thrown on the ground. Of course, the actual application of the human-faced arachnid still needed to mix in some negative emotions as a catalyst. This was not difficult for Luonan. The Wraith sign remained within the blood flame order, making it difficult to summon. This imitation human-faced arachnid could more or less serve as a substitute. The human-faced arachnid had locked onto all the threatening targets with Luonan's mental senses. The reason why it did not make a move was because Luonan had an unreliable feeling through his observations of the life sketches. He was like an experienced sniper who had a premonition of hitting or not hitting the target before pulling the trigger. No matter how bad the premonition was, it was impossible for Luonan to hesitate any longer. With a thought, the human-faced arachnid spat out an incorporeal shockwave. The shockwave passed through the insects that lacked the light of intelligence. It penetrated through all the barriers of the human body and bombarded the soul body of Black Beetle, who was closing in endlessly. A visible tremor appeared on Black Beetle's body as soon as the attack hit. His advancing figure turned slightly sluggish, but that was all. He was just stunned for a moment. His head tilted slightly, and his gaze behind his sunglasses seemed to be able to penetrate the structure of the building to land on Luonan. All right, Zhang Yingying's jinx had come true. His long-range attack really did not have any effect. Speaking of which, this was not a rare thing. Luonan had seen many problems with the siege hammer being ineffective. The human-faced arachnid had wreaked havoc in Xia City for nearly a month. Everyone gradually became aware of the methods it specialized in. Every power revolved around its existence, and the Order of Justice was able to create a faith product. How could they not allow others to create similar mental defenses? Luonan was just stunned. He did not feel depressed or flustered. He had already reached the 141st floor. He hesitated for a moment in the stairwell before walking out of the fire escape passageway. There was no one else on this floor. Inside the building, 99% of the lighting in the public area revolved around the crystal pillar, emitting a dreamy blue light. Luonan's gaze swept over as well. What should have been a comical action was done very calmly and beautifully. This was the result of his body's coordination. Luonan definitely wouldn't have been able to do such an action 10 days ago. The wonders of cultivating in the eye's orifice lay in this. It wasn't simply training the eyes. It was a kind of cultivation that encompassed the entire body. According to Gym Master Xiao, this was the beginning of a lifetime of cultivation. It played the role of summarizing the essentials. Luonan's strength, speed, and other hard indicators might not have made much progress over the past 10 days through targeted practice, but all of his abilities related to integration, coordination, and control had clearly increased. Even Black Beetle raised an eyebrow when he saw this scene. You've spent quite a bit of effort in training that robotic woman. Is it because you've licked her to your heart's content? Black Beetle's words were far from the main topic, and they were even more unbearable to the ears. Luonan's eyelids twitched, but his rhythm of observation and retreat was not disrupted. There was only a distance of 10 meters left between him and the edge of the central crystal pillar. He just needed to make a turn there and he would reach the elevator area. Black Beetle twisted his neck. His footsteps seemed slow, but they were actually fast. He strode in close pursuit. What are you running for? Do you still remember what I said? We're going to play slowly. My words must be true. My actions must be resolute. This has always been my motto. No matter how Black Beetle provoked, probed, and mocked him, Luonan made up his mind not to say a word. He knew that the real show had yet to begin. He was happy to see this situation. Shuelei had already broken through the threshold of the 130th floor. There was only a straight line distance of 40 to 50 meters left. However, the difficulty of climbing a building and running were different in the end. Plus, the difference in speed between Luonan and Black Beetle was very clear. Black Beetle took a few steps, and the distance between the two closed to around 30 meters. Luonan blinked and his eyelids drooped down. The scene before his eyes turned a bit fuzzy. Black Beetle's method of advancing looked ordinary, but it was actually full of tricks and changes. Any tiny movement of his shoulders, hips, waist, and spine could be seen as a prelude to some change. Plus, his exuberant aura of life and his self-formed self-logic obscured the details of the life sketches from beginning to end. This brought great trouble to Luonan's analysis and judgment. Luonan's spiderweb became even more complex because of Black Beetle's existence. The consumption of energy increased endlessly. Black Beetle's voice cut in at the right time. It was indescribably sinister. Are you sure you want to continue running? It's true that intelligence is often funny, but there are times when it's useful. I know that you have an outstanding range of mental senses. You have decent mental attack techniques, and you even have the ability to activate your class. But your body and soul are out of balance and your body is reaching its limits. This information isn't wrong, right? Kid, do you feel your fingers go numb, your entire body is burning, and your body is aching? Luonan's eyelids twitched. It wasn't just because of the provocation from Black Beetle's words. It was also because the distance between him and Black Beetle had already entered the threshold of 20 meters. For an ability user, Black Beetle could practically reach Luonan in a single pounce. Black Beetle's words grew all the more unhurried, but the pressure of his movements continued to increase. Your 3 axes are right there. Everyone can see it. Have you ever learned the analysis of the factors that determine victory and defeat? How to calculate the factors that determine victory and defeat, advantages and disadvantages. Actually, you don't need to lick that robotic woman. Uncle Bug can teach you step by step right now. Oh, your eyes. It's your eyes, right? Your blood vessels are about to burst. At this very moment, Luonan's half-squinted eyes were already glistening with a bright red color. It was just as Black Beetle had said. The blood vessels around his eyes were about to burst. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was used with mental senses. The results were excellent. The trajectory of activity on the material plane. The source of control on the mental plane. The structure of energy and information that interfered with each other. The elements of different planes corresponded and appeared. They affected and interfered with each other. Only by using a united method could everything be displayed in the most comprehensive manner. It was quite helpful in increasing the progress of cultivating in the eye's orifice. This point had already been displayed when he was watching the fish at the party. But Luonan's current cultivation situation could tell that there were hidden dangers in this close relationship. He had felt a sense of crisis for many days, but who would care about these things at this critical juncture? Now, after a round of cultivation, the hidden dangers began to reveal themselves. The most direct and fatal point was the limits of what his body could bear. Black Beetle believed that the time was right. He let out a strange chuckle from his throat. We can keep playing or we can be honest with each other. Why don't you tell me what you saw in the logic world? The question that came out of nowhere made Luonan, who was suffering from the limits of his eyes, feel his heart thump heavily. How many people knew about such a secretive matter? How did the news leak out? Black Beetle grasped an opportunity during Luonan's moment of distraction. How could he expect Luonan to spit it out? Black Beetle had used a series of oppressive words and actions for the sake of obtaining this opportunity to strike. Black Beetle's figure suddenly blurred, and he flashed out from the swarm of beetles surrounding his body. Even Zhang Yingying would praise him for his explosive power. He instantly crossed a distance of nearly 20 meters and clawed at Luonan's face. Black Beetle saw that Luonan was only an arm's length away, but an attack assaulted him on the mental plane. He's exhausted his limited abilities. Black Beetle had long since anticipated Luonan's response. There were only a few methods this kid could use at his current stage, no matter how one looked at it. Black Beetle had long since made his preparations to take on Luonan. He had specially cast a protective spell before taking action. It could withstand at least 5 similar waves of attacks. Black Beetle deliberately stared at Luonan's eyes. He hoped that the fear and despair in this kid's heart would spurt out along with the high-pressure burst of blood. Black Beetle would use the xianxia to capture this marvelous scene. He would give it to the robotic woman, to all the old friends who flattered and coaxed this kid, but had forgotten about him. In the next moment, the attack on the mental plane touched the protective net formed by Luonan's incantation. Black Beetle saw his wish come true. Blood seeped out from the corner of Luonan's eyes. Black Beetle's lips parted, and he welcomed all of this with a smile. Oh, wait a moment. His thoroughly tempered psychic senses sensed something strange. The mental attack came over, but there were no intertwining changes between the attack and the buffer as he had expected. It was empty. But there was a strand of gentle wind. There was even an even more formless beam of light that was cast inside. The wind passed through the gap, illuminating the earth. Chapter 301. Black Beetle could be considered a mentally enhanced ability user. Even though he didn't have much talent in the field of sensing and observation, he had basic common sense. If his own sensing and observation could reach the standard of being transparent and bright, being unobstructed and unobstructed, then it would naturally be excellent. The problem was that when he became the target of sensing and observation, his entire body would be leaking wind and rain. His body and mind would be exposed to the finest details. That would drive him crazy. This was what Black Beetle was feeling right now. From a realistic and understandable level, Luonan's face was between his palms and fingers. He just needed to reach out a little and he would be able to tear the kid's face off. But when that feeling of being unobstructed and unobstructed appeared, he felt as if his body was leaking wind from all sides. An unsuppressible feeling of weakness instantly flooded his entire body. What was going on? It was hard for Black Beetle to figure out this sudden and unforeseen event in a short amount of time. He could only see Luonan's eyes oozing blood through the gaps between his palms and fingers. Luonan's pupils were slightly dilated, unfocused, motionless, and somewhat lifeless. Just as this judgment arose in Black Beetle's mind, Luonan's eyeballs moved. The scattered rays of light faintly converged, and there was a bit of weak light that connected with Black Beetle's line of sight. The glimmering light was like a needle. The penetrating force was like silk. This tiny force of the needle would only cause a bit of pain if it pierced into the thick skin and flesh. But if it pierced into the eyeball, the heart, or the brain, then the result would certainly be different. This was what Black Beetle sensed. The state of being riddled with holes was unable to provide any protection, and the force of the needle was unimpeded. It pierced through and stirred at his weakest and most fatal location. In an instant, the pain was like thunder, exploding in his brain. It then rapidly spread out, unable to be controlled. Black Beetle howled in pain. His eyeballs nearly popped out of his eye sockets. Black and red crisscrossed in his field of vision. His senses were in chaos. Fear flooded his heart instinctively, but his many years of fighting experience still drove him. He summoned his remaining courage and did his utmost to reach out with his hand. He intended to take down the mischievous kid in one fell swoop. He was only a fist's distance away. His fingernails, coated with poison, only grabbed air. Black Beetle's figure continued to charge forward after his attack missed. Only now did he remember that he was in the midst of a high-speed assault. His senses were in error and his nervous system was under stress. It completely messed up the balance of his body. F***CK. His fingers slid diagonally across the hard wall, and then his wrist bones hit the edge of the wall. Next, his head and body collided. Black Beetle's entire body was smashed into the wall of the elevator area. Under the impact of the intense pain, his body's reaction was completely ineffective. He had truly smashed into the wall without the slightest bit of cushioning. Then he slid to the ground, the sunglasses covering his face broken. It was only then that the pain in his head showed signs of subsiding. However, the lingering pain in his fingertips, wrists, head, and torso continued. Compared to the previous wave, the degree of pain was nothing. However, the humiliation of slapping the wall and falling to the ground was like acid splashing into his chest and splashing all over his face. "I'll kill you." Black Beetle let out a roar, and at the same time, he pulled off his already deformed sunglasses and crushed them with his palm. He ignored his chaotic vision and his terrible sense of balance. He supported himself against the wall and struggled to stand up. He waved his arms in a venting manner and controlled the beetles to fly in all directions. But everything he did was useless. He couldn't even touch a hair on Luonan's head. No. He needed to calm down. He needed to calm down. Black Beetle's successive attacks failed, and his emotions of fury and fear interweaved and fluctuated. Finally there was a trough and Black Beetle seized it. He calmed his mind with all his might, trying to break free from his current terrible state. He leaned against the wall and tried to call out to his temporary partner, "Puppeteer, puppeteer." *CK. Before Puppeteer could respond, the piercing feeling came again. But this time it didn't bring about intense pain. Instead it brought about a sound of unknown origin. No, it was telepathy. Black Beetle smashed his hand against the wall. His heart was filled with resentment, but it was also hard for him to escape from fear. Powerhouses with formidable soul strength and proficient in corresponding techniques could indeed transmit telepathic thoughts to others. But most of the time it was done in a state of peace. In a true battle of life and death, both sides would be mentally tense and highly vigilant. This sort of one-sided telepathic infusion would certainly suffer powerful interference. It was practically impossible to guarantee the completeness and accuracy of the information. But now, the sound that rang in Black Beetle's mind, aside from the initial noise, grew clearer and clearer. Factor analysis. I've learned it before. Luonan's telepathic expression continued the topic they had been discussing before. It was the analysis of the factors of victory and defeat. Black Beetle had undoubtedly brought this up to ridicule Luonan and throw his mind into chaos. And now Luonan had reversed the topic and stuffed it into Black Beetle's mind bit by bit. My analysis of the factors of victory and superiority is different from yours. What I see you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control you can't compare. What I am at you can't reach. In the end I came to a conclusion. My advantage lies outside of your poor imagination. The rough and tidy sentences and information revealed the jerkiness of being pieced together at the last minute. But the poisonous and spicy ridicule followed Luonan's telepathic thoughts and seeped in layer by layer until it was branded into an imprint. Black Beetle crushed a molar from his teeth. In the next moment, his emotions sputtered out along with the crushed teeth and the glow of blood. *CK your ancestors. Black Beetle cursed crudely. His boiling energy and blood were unable to drown out the bone-chilling current in Black Beetle's mind. He knew very well that Luonan's telepathic thoughts weren't powerful. They were just strands. But it was hard for Black Beetle to interfere with Luonan's telepathic thoughts no matter what methods he used to defend. This strand of telepathic thoughts could come and go as they pleased. It wantonly painted and engraved marks on his mental plane. It was as if it had entered an uninhabited realm. It was a perfect match with the feeling of being transparent and bright, unobstructed and unobstructed. Black Beetle was unable to suppress his fear and shame. They were like two steel blades. One blade stabbed in and the other pulled out. They took turns stabbing and chopping, shredding his dignity beyond recognition. If Luonan exerted just a bit more force, just a bit more, ding. The sound of the elevator's arrival rang out in his ear. Black Beetle's vision, which had gone haywire due to the intense pain, had recovered somewhat. He was in a trance, and an afterimage flashed past the corner of his eyes. Soon the elevator door closed once more. Luonan didn't make a sound at this time. A series of changes in the details were like a foreshadowing thread. It was abruptly raised, causing Black Beetle's mind to tremble. A certain thought emerged in his mind. If that kid could really finish me off so easily, why would he fight to the point of having his eyes bleed? Why would he spout so much nonsense? Black Beetle didn't have the time to think about what would happen next. He staggered half a step and turned to look at the elevator. But all he saw was the high-speed elevator door closing, and the box had already gone down. Black Beetle's somewhat blurry vision looked all around. He could see the spacious elevator area. He could see the space of the building, but where was Luonan's shadow? Yes. Add a bit more force. There's a problem with that kid's interference ability. It's fine if it's a pure mental attack, but it's a method that directly penetrates and affects the structure of body and soul. Luonan shouldn't be able to exert any force at all. *CK me. Black Beetle cursed loudly once more. He struck the elevator door heavily, but all he did was smash a dent in the metal baffle. The elevator's floor display had already begun to change. Black Beetle no longer hesitated. He shook his head forcefully, locking onto the fire escape passageway outside the corridor. He rushed over with a few steps, smashed open the door to the stairwell, and jumped down through the narrow gap in the stairs. At the same time he contacted his companion once more. "You're a wire manipulator? If you're not dead, say something." "Yes. That kid is too sneaky. I nearly choked to death in the water. I nearly lost the person in my hands." Puppeteer's curses finally came back. Snake Tongue's protective spell isn't worth a fart. This is his last resort. Black Beetle gritted his teeth and said, "He's out of strength. He's running away. He won't be able to hold on for long. Keep an eye on the elevator. Number 15. "I'm keeping an eye." It stopped. Floor 133. Within the crystal pillar, the Devil Ray ran side by side with the high-speed elevator. Black Beetle wasn't bad either. He borrowed strength from his elbow a few times and his body flipped over. He accurately stopped at the stairwell of the 133rd floor, then he smashed through the door and exited. A white-collar worker just so happened to be waiting in front of elevator number 15 in the elevator. He was the one who had interrupted the elevator's descent. This white-collar worker was startled by Black Beetle, who suddenly rushed out from the fire escape passageway. He turned his head and Black Beetle rushed in front of him like a phantom. Black Beetle extended a hand to press down on the white-collar worker's head, fiercely smashing him against the metal door. The white-collar worker's head immediately bled and he fainted. "Thanks for your help." Black Beetle spat out these words without any sincerity, and his mouth cracked open. His expression grew more and more malevolent, and the aura on his body nearly ignited. The necktie around his neck was like a living snake as it slithered out of the collar of his suit. A certain beetle pattern inexplicably squirmed and protruded on it. It turned into a real beetle and crawled along the necktie. All Black Beetle needed to do was wrap the necktie around Luonan and stuff the venomous bug down Luonan's throat. Who cared if Luonan lived or died? The elevator was controlled by an automatic program. It didn't care about the situation outside at all. The elevator door automatically opened after it reached its destination. Black Beetle's body leaned forward and he was about to make his move. However, the elevator was completely empty. There wasn't a single shadow to be seen. No, there was still a paper man. This palm-sized work of art came from the same school as the other two that Black Beetle had crushed to pieces. It was also fearless and fearless. After pressing the elevator button, it stood upright on the wooden floor of the elevator, assuming a fist stance. "Fuck you." The string of reason in Black Beetle's mind snapped just like that. He simply extended his palm. He ignored the pain in his palm and forcefully crushed the paper man to pieces. He didn't go down. He went back to the viewing platform. The Devil Ray rapidly floated up from the crystal pillar behind Black Beetle. Puppeteer gestured to Black Beetle through the protective glass, indicating for him to go up. This was an extremely normal action, but it was an absolute mockery from Black Beetle's perspective. He still hadn't truly figured out what was going on even now. He just knew that he had been played by Luonan once again. It was just like how Luonan had left an imprint on the mental plane with strands of telepathy. What I see you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control you can't compare. Where I am you can't reach it. Ah. Chapter 302. The viewing platform had been bustling with noise and excitement. The tourists at the scene were in a state of chaos due to the Devil Ray breaking through the heavenly ocean lake. Some left, some alerted the police and some joined in the fun. But by the time Luonan climbed onto the viewing platform once more, all sounds on the platform had been cut off. Several dozen people were lying on various parts of the platform, unconscious. There was no need to doubt that Luonan himself was the one who did this. According to the knowledge he had recently learned, clearing the scene before a clash between ability users was a necessary job. A complex and ever-changing scene would cause extra trouble. Of course, there were people who would deliberately create a chaotic situation in order to gain benefits. But Luonan estimated that he might not be able to be ruthless in a critical moment. He might as well do things more straightforwardly. He did not forget that there was a puppeteer on the other side, a puppeteer who could control intelligent life forms from afar. If they were to fight again, any clear-headed personnel could create obstacles for him. Luonan considered himself to be a rookie when it came to fighting. He had to carry out the experience imparted to him by his seniors in a meticulous manner. However, a certain experienced senior had already been completely stunned by the series of movements he had made earlier. "How did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it?" Zhang Yingying smacked the steering wheel in excitement. The sharp honking sound was deafening even to Luo Nan's ears. Zhang Yingying had a belly full of words to say during the confrontation between Luo Nan and Black Beetle. She wanted to curse at Black Beetle, but she also wanted to comfort and remind Luo Nan. But she knew very well that Luo Nan was facing an absolutely disadvantageous match. In this life and death juncture, any unforeseen event could lead to a calamity. She could only suppress her worry and force herself to shut her mouth. She even had to worry about Shuelei. She didn't want her good intentions to do bad things and disturb Luo Nan's fight against the enemy. This conflict was more torturous than when she was fighting against a powerful enemy. She could no longer hold it in when the overall situation was decided. She let her belly full of depression explode. Zhang Yingying's pleasant surprise also spurred on Shuelei, who was climbing the stairs with great difficulty. He took a few deep breaths and praised, "Nanster, beautifully done. Leave the rest to me. I'll be right there." Luo Nan strolled along the edge of the viewing platform and laughed, "There's plenty of time. Slow down a bit. Don't get beaten up before you can even stand firm." Phew, don't worry. No problem." Shuelei was worried that he would affect Luo Nan unfavorably just now. He rushed upwards with all his might and he even had to hold his breath. Even though he had already obtained the talisman and connected the inside and the outside, he was still quite tired. Of course Luo Nan was fine. That was stronger than anything else. It didn't take long for Shuelei to adjust his state of mind when he was relaxed. Hey Luo, I'm asking you too." Although Zhang Yingying was complaining, her excitement did not diminish at all. She still blasted the car horn loudly. "Tell me, how did you make the bug so miserable? That guy is an egomaniac, yes, but he is definitely not a fool." Luo Nan was able to feel the pure joy from the bottom of Zhang Yingying's heart. Black Beetle could be considered an old acquaintance of hers, but Zhang Yingying stood firmly by his side at this moment. Her position was clear and unwavering. Luo Nan enjoyed this sense of recognition. He thought for a moment and replied seriously, "Correct your mentality, use your advantage and kill them with one strike. Unfortunately, there's still a problem with my interference ability. I can only buy some time." Kill them with one strike. Crag Burst must have taught you this, right? Yes, Luo Nan admitted. It was strange to say that the classes he took these past few days, whether it was Hiyuan, bamboo pole, or paper cut, all leaned towards the level of knowledge and technique. They rarely touched upon strategies to deal with the enemy. Crag Burst's teaching plan was delayed due to the problem with Luo Nan's interference ability. Crag Burst had a belly full of energy. He contacted Luo Nan a few times, but every long conversation revolved around actual combat. He imparted some practical experience to Luo Nan. Crag Burst told Luo Nan that one's mentality was the most important when dealing with an enemy. It didn't matter if one was calm or hot-blooded. One must find the most suitable mentality for oneself. It might not be the most effective or the most thorough, but it was definitely the most stable. It could withstand even more variables. In short, this was an unshakable conviction. It could only be established upon the greatest, the most irreplaceable advantage. To put it in extreme terms, a person who possessed this mentality would think like this: enemies can defeat me, but they will never be able to defeat what I am good at. Luo Nan used this principle to first confirm his own domain of advantage. Hey, you really are stupid and bold. Crag Burst and you aren't the same type, okay? Zhang Yingying had a deep understanding of Crag Burst's temperament. The more Crag Burst thought so, the more she found it hard to believe. Luo Nan, you're a mage. Can your small body handle playing with a warrior's conviction is my life? Also, your advantages? Mental senses, attacks and so on? Are they useful? Why must it be these things? Luo Nan felt a bit helpless. Whether it was Zhang Yingying or Black Beetle, they both wholeheartedly attributed Luo Nan's advantages to the range of his senses and mental attacks. Luo Nan held onto the protective glass at the edge of the platform. His gaze naturally cast far away. The sky grew darker and darker. Cloud City Water Village was the main part of the large living area. There was also the area of Acumen College that was even further away. All of them lit up with lights, separating blurry shadows and silhouettes. This scene was somewhat similar to the Star River scene formed from Luo Nan's mental senses. It was just that the blurry and turbid areas of the Star River scene were mostly interference formed by the power of ability users. The ones before Luo Nan's eyes were just pure light that couldn't reach them. Before today, Luo Nan had tried many times to disperse the turbid clouds and dark mist in the Star River scene. He had grasped the various details of the life sketches with greater precision, but he had never been able to achieve it. But just now, Luonan had successfully sent a beam of light into the deepest parts of Black Beetle's body and soul structure when he faced Black Beetle. He had drawn the clearest life sketch, and he had seen through all the weaknesses of Black Beetle's life level. Only then was he able to seize the initiative and play with Black Beetle in the palm of his hand. That beam of light originated from, or at least partially originated from, the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was not the cornerstone of Luonan's beliefs, but this technique imparted to him by Gym Master Xiao undoubtedly played an extremely crucial role. Normally, the heart lantern took into account the functions of storing and guiding water. It carved out the spiritual orifice of the body and activated Luonan's soul strength. And in practical use, it hung in the air, reflecting and foreseeing the dynamic trajectory of the material plane. It complemented Luonan's mental senses. When viewing an object or drawing a scene, if one angle was not clear, one could often find new discoveries by switching to a different angle. By comparing the two, one could see even more. It was impossible for an independent mental senses and a pure heart lantern of the eye's orifice to achieve the miraculous effect of wind passing through gaps and light illuminating the earth. But when the two were combined, Luonan used his mental senses to form a star river scene, and he used the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to sweep away the turbid clouds and dark mist. The mental and material planes coupled information, intersecting and positioning, formed a wisp of gentle wind and a beam of light. It saw through the truth hidden beneath the thick and chaotic surface. Yes, coupling. Borrowing this definition really made one's body and mind happy. Luonan closed his eyes and then opened them again. The light of his mental senses could already illuminate the life structure of ability users. Could it be that he was unable to illuminate the purely dusky void of the world? At this very moment, Luonan used a new and refined clairvoyance method to observe the void. He gazed at the silhouette of the jungle at the edge of the world. The increasingly dusky color of the sky could not obstruct him. The information on the material plane and the mental plane corresponded and connected once more. They rubbed against each other, bursting forth with a marvelous spiritual light. The light was cast into the reservoir of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Then it passed through the pupil, passed through the void, passed through the chaotic silhouette of the jungle and hung above the target. The surface of the lake was like a small mirror amidst the withered leaves of the jungle. On one side was gear. The exquisite building carried a bit of a rusty color. The long river that pierced through the forest flowed through its other corner. It made a turn at the end of one's field of view, extending into the distance. It was as if it had been washed away by time for many years. When time moved, all things moved. Chapter 303. Luonan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Shuelei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luonan did not respond. Shuelei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luonan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luonan's eyes, and Luonan's eyes were completely red. Luonan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sister Ying, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Shuelei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luonan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiao's usual demeanor. Shuelei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luonan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luonan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Shuelei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luonan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luonan's words seemed to have changed. Shuelei did not quite understand Luonan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luonan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luonan had already entered a state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and it is constantly changing. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Millions of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. Was the scene of Luonan talking to himself? Luonan was talking to Zhang Yingying. It was like a dream. She never expected that Luonan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luonan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luonan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Xuelei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luonan's words, but he had never seen Luonan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luonan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luonan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luonan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Xuelei finally found the key words in Luonan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luonan's gaze. Under the dusky sky, Xuelei gazed into the distance with his eyesight. He was able to make out the rough outline of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Master, you can see gear from here? Xuelei was skeptical of Luonan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight was far too heavy in Luonan's current state. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luonan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could look at the incorporeal law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luonan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Xuelei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luonan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a thing or two about the energy emanating from Luonan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luonan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was there enough momentum? Xuelei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Yet Luonan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It was not blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. This is nothing. I know what's going on. Luonan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though Luonan couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Xuelei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." Luonan had just finished speaking when the sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake. It was mixed with the oppressive sound of an explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Xuelei turned around, protecting Luonan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luo Nan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luo Nan's painful crouch. Only a few seconds passed, and two elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over, ignoring Shuelei. His gaze only fell on Luo Nan's arched back. Shuelei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luo Nan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luo Nan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luo Nan, but he also had to defend against two attacks at the same time. Alright, there was still the other elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Luo Nan was having a headache. Shuelei was stupefied for a moment. It took him great effort to correct the direction of his perception, and he matched the identity of the person. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tianxia. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to slightly open, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shuelei gnashed his teeth as he watched. You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society. No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tianxia. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something? Tianxi's lips trembled. Shuelei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tianxia managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. I've been taking the stairs all this time. Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luo Nan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. Chapter 304. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Shuelei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Shuelei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sister Ying, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Shuelei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiu's usual demeanor. Shuelei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Shuelei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Shuelei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered the state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and changes. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Tens of thousands of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. The scene of her talking to herself was simply a replica of that night at Frost River reality. Unfriendly thoughts and concepts assaulted her face. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luo Nan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luo Nan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Shuelei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words, but he had never seen Luo Nan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luo Nan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luo Nan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luo Nan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Shuelei finally found the key words in Luo Nan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luo Nan's gaze. He gazed into the distance with his eyesight under the dusky sky. He was able to make out the rough outlines of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Master, you can see gear from here? Shuelei was skeptical of the level of Luo Nan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight in Luo Nan's current state was far too heavy. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luo Nan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could see the formless law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luo Nan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Shuelei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luo Nan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a bit of the energy emanating from Luo Nan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luo Nan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was the after effect enough? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap and he would be crippled. All right. Find the gym master. The first person Shuelei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luo Nan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Shuelei rushed over. Master, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first? Luo Nan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. I might be in a bit of a situation. A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them and the difference in volume between the two is too large, then it will be very troublesome. Shuelei was stupefied. Zhang Yingying spoke hatefully from the other side. Don't worry about him. He's incurable. Luo Nan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the situation with his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the contact between Luo Nan's body cultivation and the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. A powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of Luonan's brain, shaking off a body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luonan had a premonition in his mind, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through his tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luonan curled up his body and crouched down. He reached out his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to open slightly, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shuelei gnashed his teeth as he watched. "You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society." No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Xianxia. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. "We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something?" Xianxia's lips trembled. Shuelei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Xianxia managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. "I've been taking the stairs all this time." Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luonan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. "It's my fault." Chapter 305. On the entire viewing platform, only Luonan was able to understand the feeling of grievance in Xianxia's words. She really did follow Luonan's instructions. She walked down the stairs of the fire escape. No matter how tired she was, she didn't ask for help from the elevator. She stayed far away from the central crystal pillar, but she was still unable to escape Puppeteer's demonic claws. She was controlled and taken hostage. Of course, the grievance was secondary. Xianxia felt more fear. She was an intelligent person. She guessed that the current momentum of victory and defeat between the two sides from the choices made by Puppeteer and Black Beetle should have been reversed. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in her being a hostage. Her value to the kidnappers was to threaten Luonan. But what value did she have to Luonan? Why would he give up the great situation of reversing the hopeless situation and take the risk to rescue her? This situation nearly made Xianxia fall into despair. However, she could only place her hopes on Luonan. She was all the more afraid that Luonan would turn a blind eye because of the inconvenience. So her expression of grievance came from her heart, but it was more or less a deliberate expression. She only hoped that she could arouse a bit of Luonan's understanding and sympathy, so that she could redeem a bit more of a chance at survival. Luonan's raised arm gave Xianxia a bit of comfort. However, her reaction couldn't satisfy others. Puppeteer sighed in the air above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He slid his body to the middle of the pool's edge along the frame structure above the pool. He crooked his finger at Xianxia. Xianxia's feet involuntarily leaned towards the swimming pool. When she got closer, her left thumb pressed against her lower jaw. She violently turned her face around and lifted it up slightly, forcing her to look up at the master who currently controlled her life. "Come. Let's work together." Puppeteer crouched down. He even lowered a hand to indicate to Xianxia. His diving goggles covered half of his face. His mouth cracked open, revealing his snow-white teeth in a smile. The shape of Puppeteer's face wasn't bad. He had the flavor of a sunny man, but Xianxia was completely drowned in fear under this smile. She could only watch helplessly. She was like a marionette. Her entire body was under the control of someone else. She extended a hand upward, connecting it with Puppeteer's palm. Then she was pulled up. Under the rough movements, she felt that her arm was about to be dislocated. She couldn't help but let out a painful groan, but the sound was quickly squeezed back. Puppeteer used his own hand in place of Xianxi's. He forcefully grabbed her neck and carefully sized her up face to face. He was very satisfied with Xianxi's complexion, which had turned from deathly pale to flushed from fear and suffocation. He took a deep breath in her hair and savored the delicate fragrance of her hair. At the same time he laughed. Beauty, whether you're willing or not, we're one. Xianxi was really about to suffocate. Right now, she had regained some control over her body, but she could only helplessly move Puppeteer's steel-like arm. She struggled with her legs. Apart from that, she couldn't do anything else. Puppeteer lifted Xianxi's slender neck. His footsteps were light as he returned to his original position. During this process, Xianxi struggled with her hands and feet at first, but she quickly ran out of strength. Her body went limp and her eyes were filled with despair. At this time, Puppeteer's gaze had already turned to Luonan. Even though Luonan was still half squatting at the edge of the viewing platform, not even turning his body around, Puppeteer's eyes behind his diving goggles were firmly fixed on Luonan. He wouldn't relax in the slightest. As for Black Beetle, he stood in front of Heavenly Ocean Lake with a cold expression. He blocked the only path to rescue Xianxi. Even so, Puppeteer still felt that it wasn't too safe. He continued, I must admit that we underestimated your abilities, Mr. Luonan. We underestimated your transcendent mental attack. Our plans were ruined. So, we learned our lesson and decided to calmly chat and discuss things. We'll solve the problem. For the sake of ensuring this, I specifically made a safety wire. Thank you for your cooperation, Beauty. Right now, I have a bit of a connection with her on the mental plane. Any experience I receive will be fairly shared with her. In terms of endurance, I have some self-confidence that I can surpass this delicate beauty. An attack that's enough to defeat me has a high chance of defeating the other first. So, right now, I can only hope that the relationship between the two of you is sufficiently close. Having said this, Puppeteer turned to look at Xianxi. Speaking of which, Beauty, have you two slept together yet? No. That's better if you haven't. Perhaps Mr. Luonan will feel that it's a pity. Puppeteer obviously hoped to receive a response from Luonan after his excellent performance, but Shuelei only sent him a gaze of loathing. The main character, Luonan, still maintained his original posture. He had even retracted his apologetic arm. It was unknown whether it was due to the effects of his injuries, or whether it was due to his disdain for his defeated subordinate. Puppeteer sighed. He had no choice but to urge Luonan, Mr. Luonan, it's best if we don't waste any more time. Even if the police are idiots, they should come back to their senses by now. Everyone should resolve this as soon as possible and go home. That would be excellent. Luonan still didn't respond. TSK. Are all youngsters this cold these days? Then allow me to warm things up first. I'll play a little trick with my temporary beauty partner. A smile returned to Puppeteer's face. Idiot, isn't it easy to break something, set it on fire or something? As he spoke, he raised his arm horizontally and turned on the speaker function. He turned the volume to the maximum. A short second later, a loud crashing sound accompanied by crashing noises could be heard. There was no sign of it stopping. You're tuning in to the Sworddance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.